I often get asked recommendations for books, and I always tell the truth, what are my favorite books, and I recommend the books that I love, the books that have impacted me. And I have been a little surprised over the years to often get the comment that is, Hannah, I read that book that you recommended, but it was so depressing. And I just thought I might respond to that because it was making me think a lot about why we read depressing books. I'm not the only one, obviously. Some of the most famous, most beloved books that have gone down in history as classics and ones that are gracing the New York Times bestseller list today are depressing. And what does that mean? That, depressing? It's about sad things that happen in someone's life, and there are characters that really crappy things happen to, and maybe the end doesn't turn out happy. I love this quote from Franz Kafka. A book must be the axe for the frozen sea within us. Good literature speaks to some part of us that maybe is otherwise undiscussed, and it might be this part of us that we are ignoring or everyone else sort of ignores as well. When we read a good book that can tap into that, that's impactful. I think we often read to escape. We read to be entertained, just like turning on, a fun movie. We can read something like Harry Potter. You guys know I'm a really big fan of Harry Potter, mostly because it is so addicting and so fun, and that is like the ultimate escape for me. I read Harry Potter about once a year, and it just feels like I'm home in the coziest way possible. And so I don't think there is anything wrong with fun books or mysteries or something like that. In fact, Tolkien, the guy who wrote Lord of the Rings, one of the ultimate escapist fantasies, he said this: fantasy is escapist, and that is its glory. If a soldier is imprisoned by the enemy, don't we consider it his duty to escape? If we value the freedom of mind and soul, if we're partisans of liberty, then it's our plain duty to escape and to take as many people with us as we can. But mostly when I read to feel something. And feeling happy through literature is great, but there's just less of a need to convey that joyful feeling, right? In general, an exploration of happy things that happen to us in life is not as necessary as an exploration of trauma, despair, grief, sorrow, dysfunction, heartache, longing. These are human experiences that often make us feel alone and disconnected, so literature makes us feel connected and less alone, as do other art forms such as film. And this is probably a part of us as readers, for those of you guys. I know you're out there who love books so much. I like cry looking at books sometimes. I love them so much. They're such a huge part of me. I think it's a part of our reading experience that's really hard to put into words. And we often don't even know that is why we're reading. We're not like, I am going to pick up a book because I feel alone in my grief. It's just a part of the experience without having to articulate it. And also, I just want to say that even though there are books that are deemed depressing, I don't really find them depressing necessarily. It's pretty rare for me to read a sad book and feel depressed after. There's one book I can think in particular that does make me feel a little low, and that is the book The Grapes of Wrath by Steinbeck. But in general, there are books that are sad that actually they make me feel encouraged. Another thing we have to keep in mind is that when we read a really good book that maybe is considered depressing, or it's a sad book, or a book that makes you cry, or just sort of a dark concept or a dark theme throughout the book, literature is beautiful, right? So there are other types of art, even if the contents are ugly. So I'm going to use an example of a book that I'm reading. I'm actually listening to this book right now. It's called A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and its contents are quite disgusting, horrid, awful, sad, depressing. It's just a sad sad experiences that happened to someone in the book, but it's a beautiful story. Horrible things happen, but the story is beautiful. The prose is good. We care about the characters so much. And the fact that many people like to read depressing books seems to confirm this, that as a species, we love to care about others. We have a deeply empathetic nature. And I think what's more depressing is that there's so much heartache and grief in the world, and yet we often just want to shut our eyes and shut our ears to what's actually going on. I find that really dark and disturbing. This idea of just like, I'm just going to close my eyes to it. Like I said, I really do love a good beach read every once in a while, and I really think those books have their place. I think they are needed and they're wonderful. But mostly when I pick up a book, I'm really hoping that it impacts me, that it creates sort of like an event in my life. When I can't stop talking about a book, or I can't stop recommending it, or I am just, can't stop thinking about it, it's because the characters stay with me for weeks. It's changed the way I think about something, and in general has left such an impression on me that I continued to pick up the book to wonder about it. It's almost like beach reads are like dessert. It would be a very bleak world without them. And it's downright healthy to forget about broccoli every now and then, but mostly we should be eating stuff like broccoli, right? Like, we don't want to just eat desserts all the time. I guess that's just how I look at it. And if I only consumed things that made me feel good in the moment, I'd be kind of a miserable person, because I simply can't live up to that expectation of happiness. And this is sort of actually my problem with the happiness objective these days. Like, your goal in life is just to be happy, because it rejects our nature to sometimes be upset and hurt and anxious. Sometimes we're blue and low and morose and tired or jealous or ashamed. These are normal human emotions that shouldn't be ignored when they arise, and that's why books can speak to them. And I'm not going to let you guys get away without a couple of book recommendations. I have 2 books that I guess some people would call depressing, but I personally wouldn't use that word. And then 2 books that are just fun escape reads. So my 2 depressing books, the first one is The Girls from Corona del Mar. If you follow me on Instagram, you're probably tired of hearing me talk about this book, because this book changed my life. I ate this book up. I read it so fast. It's so beautiful. It's coincidentally set in basically the town where I grew up and where I live right now, which is a just complete coincidence. I came across this author, Rufi Thorpe, coincidentally, and I am just so thankful for the stumbling tendencies of the internet. And this book is a friendship novel, and it's really heartbreaking in the most beautiful way. I just finished reading The Girls by Emma Cline. Now, as opposed to The Girls from Corona del Mar, this is a book that everyone was talking about a year or 2 ago. It's a bestseller. It's about a cult, and the story is so seductive and irresistible. And it's the kind of book where, like, you're reading it so quickly because it's so fascinating, but at the same time you want to savor it. Every sentence is so beautiful, and you just want to spend time with each description that she has. It's really beautiful. I highly recommend both of these books to every single person. I don't think it fits one particular audience. I think anyone could just love these books. But I do want to bring to your attention a couple books that are just fun, and books that I equally read quickly and devoured. This first is actually a series by Robert Galbraith, which is actually a pen name for a little-known author, J.K. Rowling. She started writing under this pen name just to see if she could publish without all of the pressure of her famous name, and then it was very soon leaked that it was her who was writing them. But it's a series of 4 right now. And then this other one is an author I actually discovered on YouTube, because she has a YouTube channel all about being an author and being traditionally published, which is the kind of videos that I love to watch lately. And her name is Alexa Dunn, and I just really like her. I like what she does on YouTube, so I bought her book. It's her first book that she's published. It's called Brightly Burning, and this is actually a young adult book, and this is not like typically what I read, but I like to kind of read widely and read in different genres sometimes. And it was really fun. I think I read it in 3 days. I definitely wanted to know what happened. It was very mysterious and exciting and fun to read. And I thought I would throw it in here because I think a lot of you guys on this channel are young adult readers. This is actually a retelling of the book Jane Eyre. So it's Jane Eyre set in space. It's sci-fi, YA. Is there anything more fun than that? And I guess I just want to close by saying I don't think it's important to distinguish between like highbrow books and lowbrow books or anything like that. I think there are different types of books and we need all of them. Just the fact that something is a book means it's sacred, because literature to me is one of the most important parts of living. And I don't want to be dramatic or anything, but it is so important to me and I love being able to share that with you guys. Do you guys like depressing books? I'd love to hear below. Do you guys use the word depressing? Do books depress you? Personally, I don't know. Books like The Girls and The Girls from Connor Damar, they have sad, horrible things that happen to them, but I don't walk away feeling depressed. I walk away feeling lifted. All right, that's it. Talk to you later. Bye.